Here's a gold empire, not buried in the past or displayed in museums, but thriving in the shadows today. Operating in secrecy, it wields more financial power than most nations combined, yet remains largely unknown. This empire commands no armies, flies no flags, and claims no territory. It operates discreetly, but its influence shapes your financial reality daily. Because this empire controls gold, not the gold you can buy in shops, but the gold that underpins currencies, settles international debts, and resides in vaults so deep that even high-ranking government officials have never seen it. This is the story of the most powerful financial institution you've likely never heard of, an empire constructed on gold that was stolen, concealed, and used to manipulate the global economy for 8 decades. The reason you're unaware of it is simple. Understanding their power and their actions would reveal that your money, your savings, your entire financial future has been subtly manipulated by an organization accountable to no government, bound by no laws, and operating in complete secrecy. This, then, is the story of this hidden gold empire. And once you grasp its existence, you'll never view money in the same light again. Let's begin with a building. Basel, Switzerland. Central Bahnplatz 2. An unassuming 18-story tower, indistinguishable from any other European office building. Modern, clean, unremarkable. You could pass it 1,000 times and never give a second thought. Yet, inside lies an organization wielding more influence over the global economy than the Federal Reserve, the European Central Bank, and the International Monetary Fund combined. It's called the Bank for International Settlements, or the BIS, and it is quite literally the central bank for all central banks. Every 2 months, the heads of the world's most influential central banks converge in Basel for confidential meetings. No press coverage, no public records, no accountability. The governors of the Federal Reserve, the European Central Bank, the Bank of England, the Bank of Japan, all gather in this building to coordinate monetary policy, navigate currency crises, and make decisions impacting billions. And gold lies at the heart of their operations. The BIS manages not only currencies, but also the largest gold reserves outside of national holdings. It safeguards gold on behalf of central banks, facilitates gold trading between nations, and settles international transactions using gold. It has been doing so since 1930, quietly operating beyond the reach of any single government. The BES was established after World War I to manage German reparations. However, its true purpose soon evolved into something far more clandestine, becoming the clearinghouse for gold transactions between nations, a place where central banks could move gold discreetly, away from public scrutiny. During World War II, the BES continued its operations, facilitating gold transactions between the Nazis and the Allies, even as they were at war. Consider that. While soldiers perished on battlefields and cities were devastated by bombs, central bankers on both sides continued conducting business through the BES, trading gold and settling accounts. To them, the financial system superseded even the war itself. This is a mere conspiracy theory. It's documented history. The BES accepted gold looted by the Nazis from occupied countries, gold stolen from Jews, central banks, and anyone the Nazis could plunder. The BIS then laundered this gold, legitimizing it and injecting it back into the international financial system. After the war, there were calls to shut down the BIS and prosecute its officials. Yet it was protected. Why? Because every major power had a vested interest. They needed a neutral hub for moving gold, managing currencies, and making deals away from public oversight. Thus, the BIS survived and grew even more powerful. Now, let's revisit the moment this empire truly took form. July 1944, Bretton Woods, New Hampshire. Representatives from 44 nations gathered to redesign the global financial system. At the heart of this system lay a promise. The United States would back its dollar with gold, other nations would peg their currencies to the dollar, and all would manage their gold reserves in coordination with the BES and the Federal Reserve. The official narrative is that America held the majority of the world's gold in Fort Knox and other depositories. The unofficial, and perhaps more accurate, story is that a significant portion of that gold was held and managed through the BES network. Central banks worldwide deposited their gold with the BS for safekeeping and trading purposes. They sought to avoid physically shipping gold bars across oceans every time they needed to settle an account. So they kept it within the BS system, moving it on paper, on ledgers, invisible to everyone except the central bankers themselves. This created a hidden tier within the gold market, inaccessible to ordinary individuals, where prices, quantities, and transactions remained secret. This secrecy translated into power. By controlling gold discreetly, they could manipulate its price, its availability, and its broader role within the financial system. And that's precisely what they did. By the late 1950s, the Bretton Woods system began to show signs of strain. The United States was spending far more than its gold reserves could support. The Vietnam War, the space race, and social programs were all funded by printing more dollars. And the world began to notice. The official price of gold was fixed at $35 an ounce. However, the market price, what people were actually willing to pay for physical gold, began to creep higher, reaching $40, then $45. The gap was widening. If it continued to widen, the entire system risked collapse as nations would realize that the dollar was no longer truly backed by gold. So in 1961, central banks created the London Gold Pool. 8 nations, the United States, Britain, France, West Germany, Italy, Belgium, the Netherlands, and Switzerland, secretly agreed to manipulate the price of gold. Here's how it worked. They would coordinate their gold sales to suppress the market price and keep it near $35 an ounce. When demand for gold increased, they would flood the market with gold, driving the price back down. This wasn't a free market, it was price fixing. And it was orchestrated through the Bank of England in London, with coordination from the BS in Basel for 7 years. They succeeded in maintaining the price. Billions of dollars worth of gold flowed out of central bank vaults and into private hands, but the official price remained fixed at $35. They were essentially selling real gold at artificially low prices to maintain the illusion that the dollar was still backed by something tangible. However, they faced a growing problem. They were running out of gold. By the mid-1960s, the United States was hemorrhaging gold reserves. And one country called their bluff: France. Charles de Gaulle, the president of France, examined the figures and realized that the Americans were deceiving the world. In 1965, he ordered the Bank of France to begin converting its dollars into gold and physically shipping it back to Paris. He dispatched French naval vessels across the Atlantic to collect gold bars from a New York Federal Reserve. Other countries took notice. Germany started converting, and Switzerland followed suit. Gold was flowing out, and the London Gold Pool couldn't stop it. In 1968, the pool collapsed. The central banks admitted that they could no longer control the price of gold. The market price soared, and the entire Bretton Woods system was exposed as a fraud. For 7 years, they had manipulated gold to protect the dollar. And when they could no longer manipulate it, they had to rewrite the rules entirely. 3 years later, in 1971, President Nixon closed the gold window. No more gold backing. The dollar became pure fiat currency, and gold was officially demonetized, cast out of the monetary system. At least, that's what they told you. But here's the secret. Gold never truly left the system. Central banks continue to hold thousands of tons of it. The BS continues to manage it. They still trade it amongst themselves, and they still use it to settle certain international accounts. The only difference is that they no longer publicize it, and they work diligently to convince you that gold is irrelevant, a barbaric relic, a mere trinket, something only the paranoid invest in. But if gold is so insignificant, why do central banks continue to hoard it? The United States officially claims to hold over 8,000 tons of gold, the largest reserve in the world. Germany holds approximately 3,000 tons. The IMF holds roughly 3,000 tons. China officially reports around 2,000 tons, though many believe the true figure is much higher. Russia has been aggressively buying gold for 2 decades and now holds over 2,000 tons. All of these nations, all of these institutions, claim that gold doesn't matter, yet they hold it, they guard it, and they never sell it all. Why? Because gold is the ultimate reserve. When everything else fails, when currencies collapse, when trust erodes, gold is what remains. And they know it. Now, here's where the story takes a truly dark turn. In 1974, after Nixon closed the gold window, the United States made a deal with Saudi Arabia. Oil will be priced exclusively in dollars, and in exchange, the U.S. would provide military protection to Saudi Arabia and purchase their oil. This created the petrodollar system. Every nation that wanted to buy oil, which meant every nation, needed dollars. This artificially created demand for dollars, even though they were no longer backed by gold. The dollar remained a global reserve currency, not because of gold, but because of oil. And behind the scenes, through the BIS, gold continued to be used to manage the system. When currencies faltered, central banks swapped gold to stabilize them. When debts matured, gold changed hands to settle accounts. All of this remained hidden from the public, but the empire continued to operate, continued to exert its influence, and continued to control. Now, let's delve into Fort Knox, where the mystery deepens. Fort Knox is supposedly where the United States stores the bulk of its gold, for 1,000 tons of it. Housed in a vault in Kentucky, guarded by the U.S. Army and protected by multiple layers of security. However, almost nobody has actually seen it. The last public audit of Fort Knox took place in 1953, over 70 years ago. Since then, the gold has been off limits. Congressmen have requested inspections, and auditors have sought access, but all requests have been denied. In 1974, a small group of journalists and congressmen were granted a brief, highly controlled tour. They saw some gold bars and were assured that everything was in order. That was it. No independent audit, no verification of purity, weight, or quantity. Just trust us, the gold is there. But what if it isn't? What if some of it was sold during the London gold pool? What if some of it was leased out to bullion banks and never returned? What if the vaults hold far less than the officially stated 8,000 tons? This isn't paranoia. It's based on the historical actions of central banks. They manipulated gold in secret for 7 years. They lied about the dollar's backing, and they closed the gold window when they could no longer sustain the lie. So, why should anyone believe them now? Here's the most plausible theory. The gold in Fort Knox, assuming it's still there, is no longer entirely owned by the United States government. Some of it has been leased, swapped, or pledged as collateral to the BS network or other central banks. The bars are physically in Kentucky, but the title, the ownership, is more complex. It has been used and reused in financial transactions that the public will never see. The reason they can't allow an audit is because it would reveal that the clean, simple narrative, America has 8,000 tons of gold, is a lie. The true story is far messier. Ownership is divided. Some is leased, and some is encumbered. Admitting this would shatter confidence in the dollar. So, they simply avoid discussing it and prevent any scrutiny. However, the gold empire knows the truth. The BIS knows. The central bankers who meet in Basel every 2 months know exactly where the gold is, who owns it, and how it's being used. And they will never tell you. Let's fast forward to the present day, because the gold empire is still operating, still manipulating, and still concealing. Since 2000, the gold price has been suppressed through a mechanism known as the paper gold market. Here's how it works. You can buy physical gold, actual bars and coins, but the majority of gold trading occurs on paper. Futures contracts, exchange-traded funds, and derivatives. You're not buying real gold. You're buying a promise that you could receive gold if you wanted it. The beauty of paper gold, from their perspective, is that you can create far more of it than the physical gold that actually exists. Estimates vary, but some analysts believe that there are over 100 paper claims for every ounce of physical gold. This means that if everyone who owned paper gold attempted to take delivery of the real metal, the system would collapse instantly. There simply isn't enough physical gold to cover all the promises. However, as long as most people simply trade the paper and never request delivery, the illusion holds and the price can be controlled. When the gold price begins to rise too rapidly, threatening to signal dollar weakness or inflation, the big banks, JP Morgan, HSBC, and others, flood the futures market with massive amounts of paper gold. This increases supply, and even though no physical gold is moved, the price drops, sending a message. Gold is not a safe haven. The dollar is fine. Everything is under control. This manipulation has been documented, and banks have been fined, often with rather modest penalties, for rigging the gold market. But the practice persists because it's crucial for maintaining confidence in fiat currencies. And behind it all, coordinating, facilitating, and managing the flow of real gold between central banks is the BIS. They don't need to directly manipulate the paper market. They simply need to ensure that when the paper market falters and someone demands physical delivery, the real gold is available to prevent panic. They manage the reserve, the backstop, the hidden layer. As long as they can keep that layer functioning, the paper market can continue to inflate promises far beyond reality. But what happens when it breaks? What happens when confidence crumbles and everyone demands physical gold simultaneously? That's when you discover that the empire has been running on fumes. That's when the price of real, physical gold decouples from paper gold. And that's when the people holding paper discover they own nothing but promises from a system that can't deliver. Now, let's discuss why this is relevant to you. You've been told that gold is an antiquated relic, not real money, and that holding it is irrational. But the wealthiest and most powerful institutions in the world, the BS, the central banks, the billionaires, are all holding gold. They're buying it quietly. Russia added 600 tons in a decade. China has been buying for 2 decades and concealing the true figures. Central banks globally are net buyers of gold at levels not seen since the 1960s. They're preparing for something, and it's not because they're paranoid. It's because they know the paper system is unsustainable. They know the debt can never be repaid. They know the currencies are being inflated into irrelevance. And when the reset comes, when trust collapses, gold will be the only asset that still commands respect, the only asset governments can't print, and the only asset that has survived every currency collapse in history. The hidden gold empire isn't just about hoarding metal. It's about control of the narrative. If people lose faith in fiat currency and rush into gold, the price would skyrocket. Governments would lose their ability to print and spend without limit, and the financial system, built on debt and leverage, would collapse. Therefore, they must suppress gold. They have to convince you it's irrelevant. They need to keep the price controlled to prevent it from signaling the truth that fiat currencies are dying. They accomplish this through the BES network, through paper gold manipulation, and through media narratives that ridicule gold buyers as cranks and doomsayers. But the empire knows the truth, and they're protecting their own reserves while telling you to ignore yours. Here's the historical pattern. Every major empire that abandoned sound money, that debased its currency, that relied on paper promises, eventually collapsed. Rome, Spain, Britain, all of them. And in every instance, gold was the asset that survived. When the Roman denarius became worthless tin, gold still had value. When Spanish silver inflated into poverty, gold still purchased goods. When the British pound collapsed as a reserve currency, gold still settled debts. The pattern is clear. Paper fails, gold endures. And the people who anticipate this, who hold real assets before the collapse, are the ones who preserve their wealth. The people who trust the system, who hold paper and promises, are the ones who lose everything. So, what should you take away from this? First, understand that the gold market is not free. It's managed, manipulated, and controlled by institutions that operate in secrecy. The price you see is not the real price. It's the price they want you to see. Second, recognize that central banks still use gold. They still hold it, and they still trade it. They haven't abandoned it. They've just hidden it from you. If gold was truly irrelevant, they wouldn't bother. Third, the BIS is the most powerful financial institution you've never heard of. It operates beyond the reach of any government, answers to no one, and coordinates the monetary policy of the entire developed world. If you want to understand who truly controls the system, look to Basel. Fourth, Fort Knox may not contain what they claim. And even if the gold is physically there, ownership may be far more complicated than the official narrative suggests. An audit will never happen because it would reveal too much. Fifth, the paper gold market is a house of cards. It functions as long as nobody demands physical delivery. But when confidence breaks and people demand real metal, the system will collapse, and the price of physical gold will diverge completely from paper promises. History demonstrates that gold empires operate in secret because transparency would expose their power. The London Gold Pool remained secret for 7 years. The BS has been shrouded in secrecy for over 95 years. The true gold holdings of nations like China remain concealed. The manipulation of gold prices is officially denied, even after banks have been fined for engaging in it. Everything about gold at the institutional level is hidden, obscured, and lied about. That should tell you something. If gold didn't matter, there would be no reason to conceal it. The fact that they work so diligently to suppress it, to ridicule it, and to keep you away from it reveals that gold is the one asset they fear. Because gold is the truth. It's real, it's scarce, and it can't be printed. When you hold gold, you hold something outside their system, something they can't devalue, and something they can't control. And that's precisely why they don't want you to have it. The hidden gold empire is real. It operates through the BS, manages trillions in gold reserves, and manipulates prices. It coordinates central bank policy, and it does all of this in complete secrecy. You were never intended to know it exists. You were meant to trust paper, trust banks, and trust the system. But history has repeatedly shown that systems built on paper always fail. And when they do, gold is what endures. The empire knows this. That's why they hold it. That's why they hide it. And that's why you should pay attention. History doesn't repeat itself, but its patterns are unmistakable. Paper currencies die, gold survives. And those who understand this before the collapse are the ones who will preserve their wealth when everything else turns to dust. If this provided you with a new perspective, hit subscribe. History holds the answers. I'll show you where to look.